Thank you, everyone. It's now 5:30 PM on May 28th, and I'd like to call the regular meeting of the Oshtemo Township Board to order. And at this time, we will be doing a remote location identification for members not present who are eligible by state statute to attend. John, do we have anyone online? No. And for the members of this body who might not be aware, as well as the public, Clerk Farmer will not be joining us this evening. She is traveling at this point. And so at this time, it's my pleasure to invite you to join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Just going to take up all of Dusty's space.
Is Jim going to take the minutes?
Yes.
Okay. I just wanted to make
Yep.
sure we already talked about it.
Thank you. At this time, I would like to bring the board and the public to agenda item number 4, a portion of the township mission, vision, and core values, and invite someone from this body to read the core value stated.
Ensure that taxpayer investments are spent wisely, effectively, and efficiently.
Thank you, Trustee Chapman. Next, we'll move to agenda item number 5, which is public comment on non-regular session items. So if there's anyone here this evening wishing to make public comment that's not a part of tonight's agenda, I welcome you to the podium and share your thoughts. Any hands online? I see we have some joining online. No? Okay. With that, I will close public comment and open item number 6, public official updates. Do we have any members here present from the larger public officials who wish to update the board? Seeing none, I will close item 6 and move to the consent agenda. The consent agenda comprises of the meeting minutes from our regular meeting May 14th, extension of approval for Hampton Cove PUD conditional rezoning, and budget amendments. Do we have any members of this body wishing to remove an item from the consent agenda?
Yes. I'd like to remove both B and C, please.
I move to adopt item A from the consent agenda.
Support.
Hold on, I'm taking some notes, just a second. I have a motion and support, a motion by Trustee Ford, support by Trustee Sikora to adopt the consent agenda amended to letter A. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. We will revisit consent agenda items 7, B, and C later in the meeting. Next, I would like to bring the attention of the board and the public of recognition of our ordinance enforcement officer, Rick Sawarski, for 12 years of public service. John, do you know is Rick online? Okay, if he joins and raises his hand, give me a flag. So, ordinance enforcement officer Rick Sawarski served with the township for a total of 12 years, and recently had to step away from his position with the township to address some personal matters that required him to step away from his work. I became to know Officer Sawarski when I took on, more closely when I took on the role of supervisor, and always found him to be an absolutely positive, energetic person whose heart was really in helping the citizens and the residents of this community. And so to underscore that, we're here today to thank Rick for his service, his 12 years of service to the township. We were very sorry to have to see him transition out of a permanent role with the township, but I do want to share some thoughts from his colleagues. This is from Jim Wiley. He's our Assistant Fire Chief and the Fire Marshal for Oshtemo Township. Oshtemo Township Ordinance Enforcement Officer Rick Sawarski has been a dedicated and diligent ordinance enforcement officer who takes pride in ensuring that the community is safe and in compliance with regulations. He's known for his professionalism, attention to detail, and excellent communication skills. Officer Sawarski is always willing to go above and beyond to help residents fully understand and comply with ordinances, making him a very valuable asset to the community. Rick has always reached out to assist his fellow staff members in many different projects and tasks. Rick will be missed here at Oshtemo Township. Thank you for your many years of service to our community. That's from Jim Wiley. Second, we have a statement by Ordinance Enforcement Officer Rod Rout. And Rod and Rick worked closely together for a long time. And so I think of all colleagues, he probably knew him the best. I'm going to put on some glasses so I can see this better. This is from Ordinance Enforcement Officer Rodney Rout. I would like to thank you for the opportunity to share my story about Rick Sawarski. I first met Rick approximately 15 years ago while I was employed as a deputy sheriff for the Kalamazoo County Sheriff Department assigned to Oshtemo Township. Rick was an amazing asset to me as a deputy. Whenever I needed information or help with anything in the township, he would stop whatever he was doing and assist me with whatever I needed at that time. Then in 2020, I had the opportunity to work with Rick as a coworker. When I started, Rick made sure that I had a good understanding of the job and the overall operation of the township. He was extremely supportive, patient, and thorough in helping me get acquainted with the job. Rick has an amazing understanding of all the departments in the township. He knew his job extremely well and was always very professional both to his coworkers and to the public. Rick truly loved his job, coworkers, and the community. Rick would do anything for anyone in need. Rick, unknown to many people, would stay late or come in on his own time to help someone in need. Rick would literally give you the shirt off his back if he thought you needed it. I also learned how much Rick's family meant to him. The love and compassion he shows for his family is truly inspiring. He has always made sure his wife and kids had everything they needed at all times and never thinking about himself. Lastly, and most importantly, the one thing about Rick that I can say that truly means the most to me is I have the honor to call you my friend. Thank you, Rodney Rout. And so we wanted to take some time to recognize the service of Ordinance Enforcement Officer Rick Sawarski, who is unable to join us this evening. But we do have a certificate of recognition that we'll be sending on to his family and reminding him that he can watch the Zoom meeting later when he wants to. So at this time, I would like to thank Rick Sawarski for his service to the township. Any comments from other members of the board? I look forward to a day when he can come visit us in person and say hi. Next, we'll move to item number 9, recognition of Oshtemo Township Fire Department for the 80th anniversary. At this time, I'd like to invite our Fire Chief, Greg McComb, to come to the podium. it me or you? Oh, it's okay. Thank you, Chief. So I really think it's important to take time, stop, and recognize the staff and their contributions, and also milestone anniversaries. And so I saw in a flitter of communication somewhere that historical documentation had been turned into the fire department from the township, and Chief will talk about that a little bit more. But they were also able to pinpoint the 80th anniversary of the fire department. And I called the chief and I'm like, whoa, wait a minute, you don't get to just like celebrate that by yourself. Our fire department is a recognized benefit to this community. We've seen it over and over again in surveys, that the service of the fire department to Oshtemo Township is recognized and beloved by the members of this community. And we have a lot to be proud of for having such a great fire department. I hear it when I visit other places, how beloved and revered Oshtemo's fire department is. So unfortunately, she wasn't able to join us for the board meeting, but I do have a tribute here who was presented this afternoon from State Representative Christine Morris. So, Chief, do you want to speak a little bit?
Sure, yep. So a lot of times we would respond to Hope Woods, which is a facility here in Oshtemo. There's a gentleman there that used to work for Portage Dispatch and also the city dispatch. And he was a fire buff and he collected all these things that were fire related. If he ever caught us when we were leaving somebody's apartment, if we didn't have the patient with us, he'd be like, hey, come here, and he'd keep us for another 5 or 10 minutes and show us all sorts of the goodies that he has. His health has deteriorated. His family picked him up and took him home, and in going through his belongings came up with all these articles about Oshtemo, and we have an entire book full of old newspaper articles. And within those articles, we were able to narrow down the date of basically the founding or the start of our fire department. And this was 80 years this month. So that's how we came across it. We had a quick little celebration because it was like 2 days away when we found out when it was. So we had a little celebration over there, but I thank Supervisor Bell for wanting to make it a little bigger deal for us. So thank you.
Well, it's my pleasure. And again, highlighting the work of this community and also the fire department, which we know is very respected and appreciated by this community. It just comes out all over the place. So I'd like to read this tribute. With my glasses. This is a tribute from the state of Michigan for the Oshtemo Fire Department. Let it be known that we are proud to join with the members, officers, and friends of the Oshtemo Fire Department as they gather to mark the 80th anniversary of this outstanding organization. This milestone is a reflection of unselfishness and commitment to the common good that is most commendable. While the members of this distinguished organization celebrate 80 years of service, we offer our thanks for the sacrifices they have made for Oshtemo Township and throughout Michigan. Oshtemo Fire Department can trace its origins to 1944 and the aspirations of its founders. The department is a combination fire department with full-time staff, paid on-call members, as well as resident interns. In the years that have followed since they first came together, this organization has adapted to the changes in society, membership, and expectation. This ability to grow and change has shown the belief that members have maintained in their mission of service and the unity of membership. Oshtemo Fire Department's mission is to provide the best proactive and emergent service possible to all residents of the community. With their strong desire to serve, come true ownership in this organization with the belief in the core values of respect, responsibility, and pride. The firefighters of Oshtemo Fire Department risk their physical and mental health every day for the protection and safety of the people, some making the ultimate sacrifice. It is because of these individuals who dedicate countless hours and energy to public safety that we can enjoy peace of mind in the Oshtemo community. It is with special tribute, therefore, this document is signed and dedicated to commemorate the 80th anniversary of the Oshtemo Fire Department. We commend everyone who has contributed to its success and thank them for the manner in which their members have strengthened Michigan. Signed by State Senator Sean McCann, State Representative Christine Morris, State Representative Matt Hall, Lieutenant Governor Garland Gilchrist, and Governor Gretchen Wilmer.
Thank you.
And now you can hang this in the station.
I'll get it from you in a little bit.
Okay. And in celebration, we do have a little cake and beverages, so I fully expect that, and when I say beverages, I mean iced tea, lemonade, and water. But I do expect, I hope you'll enjoy a piece of cake in celebration of our 80th anniversary of the fire department. Thanks, Chief. All right, that was easy stuff. Do you want to take a break for cake? Do you want to take a 10-minute break for cake? Huh?
His blood sugar's low. Yeah, we should.
All right, let's take a 10-minute break for cake. We will resume at 6 p.m. All right, it's 6 PM. I hope you are just, enjoying that piece of cake. Have a second piece, please. Don't want to leave, actually, I'm sure there's staff that would eat leftovers, but if there were no leftovers, no one would mind that either. Anyway, it's 6 PM. I'm going to call this meeting back to order. And at this time, I'd like to revisit remote location identification online with us pursuant to what is allowed by the state of Michigan. Clerk Dusty Farmer has joined us for the remainder of this meeting. That means that she is, by statute, able to participate in discussion and voting. Next, we'll move to item 10, consideration of issuance of industrial facilities tax exemption certificate for Faraday Defense Corporation and Faraday Properties LLC. Attorney Porter?
Excuse me. This is the time and place for a public hearing on consideration of the IFT for Faraday Properties LLC. I provided a couple of memos to the board, one of them indicating what the taxes will likely be generated on the facilities once they are built, and while in fact it will give them a large break on their initial taxes, it will then generate for the community on an annual basis approximately $155,250 a year in taxes, of which the township will collect approximately $9,200. And then because it's a 50% reduction, obviously the total reduction in revenue to the township is only a little over $9,000. The special assessment districts, on the other hand, for fire will generate approximately $24,000 and a little over $6,000 for police annually. In addition to that, when they hook up to our sewer, our Public Works Department has calculated that their connection fees will generate about $66,000. And the board may recall that we are the public entity that installed public sewer and water in that facility, and so we will recoup that into our sewer fund. With that, you can ask to hear from the applicant. I have looked at everything they've submitted, and it's in good order for consideration by the board. All the appropriate notices were published, and it is the time and the place for you to consider their request for the IFT. And I believe the applicants are here to be heard by the board.
Thank you, Attorney Porter. Before we move forward with the applicants, is there any questions about the attorney's statements? Okay, at this time, if there are any representatives from, regarding this application from Faraday Defense Corporation and Properties, it's your time to address the board.
Hi, thanks for having us back again. We appreciate the time that you took to review the IDD on the last session that we were here and the favorable vote that was cast. And so we're here again asking, as Attorney Porter pointed out, we've applied with all the items that we needed to and provided all the information. I think that this will provide, aside from us getting some discount on or abatement on the property taxes for the 12 years, this will actually add revenue to the township, both through the hookups and through the 50% that you will get of the cost of the new building. I don't really have a whole lot to share beyond what was in the application, but I'm happy to answer any questions that anybody has.
One thing I forgot to mention, I'm sorry, is that the estimate of job creation is between 15 and 18 additional employees in the next 2 years. That's a key component.
Yeah, and I'll speak to that a little bit. So I shared some of this last time, so I don't mean to be redundant, but we've grown substantially in the last 3 years. We've been adding about 3 to 5 employees every year. This last year, we grew 400% from a revenue standpoint. We've really started to take on a lot of national contracts with various government agencies and universities and public schools. One of the two biggest items that we do are Faraday bags for kids for their cell phones for in school. So a lot of schools are putting those in place to keep the kids off the phones. I know sometimes I get texts from my daughter and I'm like, "Where are you?" She's like, "I'm in the bathroom." I'm like, "Get back to class." So it's those kinds of things. They have to put them in their phones and keep them in the room, put their phones in the bags and keep them in the room. And then the other area that we're really seeing a lot of growth in is large rooms and cages that we're developing and manufacturing and doing a lot of research on to make them even stronger for data security and protection for a plethora of private and public companies. Yeah.
I just want to make sure you put your name on the public record. I know we.
Oh,
all know
yeah,
you, but-
Kyle Cisco with Faraday, Sischo. And to speak to the employees that we'll be adding over the next foreseeable future would be a variety of roles, both from research and development, engineering, construction for these cages and new products that we develop, in addition to administrative staff and logistics and shipping as well. And as Jim called out, we expect to hire another 15 to 18 employees over the next couple of years, 2 years after the construction. That's all I have. Happy to answer any questions.
Thanks. Attorney Porter, is questions from the board appropriate during a public hearing?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay,
Yeah.
I just want to,
And then you want to take public comment
Right.
afterwards. Yep.
okay.
Sure.
I don't have a question, just, we're happy to have you in Oshtemo Township. We appreciate watching this growth happen. I wanted to also say to Jim, I appreciate the way you've put this together for the Township Board. In this case, a little bit easier, I think, for everybody to digest the value proposition from both sides, right? So there's a lot of benefit to the township to help make this a reality for you guys. And it's exciting to see you guys grow, so
Yeah, it's a
thanks for
win-win.
staying in Oshtemo.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yep, I agree, and I'd like to second that. I was going to say it, and then you said it before me. So Jim, very nice job. Thank you for putting the numbers together. It really, really helps to see the balance from the tax abatement to what we're going to be getting in return. And also to Faraday for putting together a very thorough, I guess, report from your application. And I really liked seeing the employees that you do have now that have since moved to Oshtemo
Yeah.
because of that. So I'm very much in support of this.
So I personally have used your equipment as a person who serves in the military. I believe there was a large contract with the Air Force and USAFE in particular for your materials. Very well done. As a company that just started in 2015, it's commendable that you would be able to obtain such large contracts. It's a testament to you and your business, and I congratulate you on that. And I thank you, because like I said, I've used your equipment. There are many times where, for various reasons, we need to keep things where they are, and your equipment allows that. But at the same time, I am going to vote against you, not as a statement against you, because I very much appreciate you being here. But I think that whenever we give tax abatements to corporations, we shift part of the burden of a community onto the citizens. And just based on my beliefs, I will vote against it, but I very much support you and what you do, and having a business such as this in Oshtemo. It's amazing. I mean, it really is amazing to have that in our community. But at the same time, you know, your company is growing, it's doing very well, and I don't think that this, to me, is the best use of public funds. To me, those funds could be used to help maintain our parks, our roads, and other things. So I just wanted to put that out there. It's not against your company, it's just a principle belief.
Sure. Thanks for the opinion.
Any other comments for the applicant? All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any other members of the of the public wishing to make public comment during this public hearing regarding the application from Faraday Defense Company and Faraday Properties? Seeing none, I will close the public hearing.
If you're ready for it, I will make a motion to approve the issuance of the Industrial Facilities Tax Exemption Certificate for Faraday Defense Corporation and Faraday Properties LLC.
Support.
I have a motion and support, motion by trustee Cole, support by trustee Sakura. Is there any discussion on the motion? And is this a roll call vote?
Yes.
Okay. I feel like if it's a
Had to
public.
stop and think about it,
I
yes.
feel like if it's a public hearing, it needs a roll call vote. Oh, actually, before I move to the vote, Clerk Farmer is on the line. Does Clerk Farmer, do you wish to make any comments?
No, I don't. If Jim could call the roll, that would be great.
Thank you.
Mr. Ford,
Yes.
Mr. Sikora,
Yes.
Treasurer,
Yes.
and Supervisor Bell.
Yes.
Mr. Chapman,
No?
and Ms. Cole.
Yes.
Motion passed.
Nope, you gotta take
Oh,
Dusty.
Dusty.
I vote yes.
I'm sorry, Dusty. Left you out. Didn't see you, left you out. Okay, 6-1.
Just be clear, we're going to be checking up on those job additions. Don't think that that is a forgotten point. So, thanks. Thank you very much. Glad to have you in Oshtemo. And in the BTR part, BTR 2, right? You're going into BTR 2? Yeah, it's awesome. Next, we will move on to item number 11, which is not a resolution. It is a public hearing for the Second Street Special Assessment District to set the roll. Attorney Porter?
Yeah, if it's approved for resolution, so the Public Works Director's memo is accurate in that respect. But technically, it's the time for the hearing on the special assessment roll. It's the time for anybody that is objecting to the roll, that is objecting to the actual assessment placed on the property for the proposed improvement. It's your opportunity to appear and protest, and it is in fact a requirement if you wish to proceed to the Michigan Tax Tribunal to object to the assessment that will be levied on your property. It's your opportunity to put your protest on the record so that you can appeal if you choose.
Thank you, Attorney Porter. Ms. Horner, do you want to speak? Is there any further information needed? I mean, I think we've we've been through this,
Yes.
so,
I mean, if Anna wants to add anything, that's fine. And then you open the public hearing and take any objections.
okay, so Anna, do you want to add anything to this?
I don't have anything to add from the last meeting.
Okay. So this time we'll open the public hearing for the South Second Street Special Assessment. Do we have any members of the public who wish to come to the podium and offer formal comments regarding the assessment roll for the Second Street project? Okay, seeing no public comment, actually, let me turn to the Zoom, because we have some people in Zoom today. It's kind of exciting, actually. Making sure we don't have any hands raised in Zoom. I don't see any? Okay, thanks, John. All right, the public hearing is closed. Is there any further board comment or deliberation regarding this item?
If not, you have a preamble and a resolution to adopt the Second Street Special Assessment District. And this would commence with the tax notices that go out at the end of the year.
So I'll make the motion to approve the resolution for the South Second Street Special Assessment Role.
Second.
I have a motion by trustee Sikora, a second by trustee Ford. Any discussion on the motion? No?
is a roll
It
call.
is a roll call vote.
Yep.
Attorney Porter, we'll ask you to take that roll call, please.
This time we'll start out with Dusty Farmer. Dusty?
Yes.
And then Ms. Cole,
Yes.
Mr. Chapman,
Yes?
and Supervisor Bell,
Yes?
and Treasurer Bushka,
Yes?
and Mr. Sikora,
Yes.
and Trustee Ford.
Yes.
Motion, or the resolution passes 7-0.
Okay. I think we have all the pieces in place, correct?
Yes.
Anna? Okay. All right. I just drove down there the other day. I forgot that L Avenue had a S-curve in it. It had been so long since I'd been down L Avenue. Next, we'll move to item number 12, which is a discussion on a new housing ordinance. And I'm kind of excited that this is moving forward. I'm going to ask Attorney Porter to sort of talk about it, maybe give some history about how we got here.
Sure. When I first started with the township, we had no inspections for any type of rental units at all, zero. Obviously, given the fact that our housing stock is almost 50% rental units, or maybe it is 50 or more than 50%, at the time, the board felt it was necessary, particularly with regard to some of the larger developments, to make sure that they were inspected on a fairly regular basis. And so we established a housing ordinance at that time, but it only covered quads and above. So if it was a 4-unit or larger, it got an inspection. I believe the inspection was like once every 3 years, and it was for a relatively small portion of any type of housing development. But it did help. I think it made sure that we had a lot of good actors, but we had a few bad actors that didn't maintain as well as they should, and I think it helped improve the housing stock. But we've noticed, because in addition to the requirement under a housing ordinance for inspections, we also had the ability to inspect if there were complaints. So sometimes single-family homeowners that were, or single-family renters renting a single-family home would complain, and then we would inspect. Or in a 2-unit, we would inspect. Or in certain cases, we would inspect hotels or motels, but only on a complaint basis. And what we have noticed over the last couple of years is a serious deterioration in other areas of our housing stock, including hotels and motels, and in some of the single-family units that are being rented out. So our ordinance enforcement officers, Rick, who's gone now, but Rod as well, came forward and had a series of photographs and showed our supervisor and myself sort of what they were up against. And they said, in essence, does it have to really get this bad? And I saw some pictures that would, you wouldn't put your dog there. I mean, seriously, would not. Some of the places just terrible. And so because of that and the lack of inspections, they strongly recommended that we consider a stronger ordinance. Not wanting to necessarily reinvent the wheel, I'm aware that the city of Kalamazoo has a very strong program, and so I wasn't going to simply draft something from scratch. I went to look and see what the city did for their housing stock, and we are basically following the city of Kalamazoo's model ordinance, and will be adopting many of the forms and the processes that they did. Took out the things that didn't apply to us, because we're not a city, we are a township. But this is for your consideration, and in implementing it, it may take us some time to come fully up to speed, but this would give us the opportunity to go out and look at some of the facilities that we've discovered through complaints are having some serious problems maintaining the quality that they should to rent. So this will include literally any rental unit, single-family, duplex, triplex, hotel, motel, any place that's being rented, they will have to register, and they will have to have their inspections done on a regular basis. And that way, we're hoping we can maintain the housing stock for all of our residents, including our renters.
And visitors.
And visitors, yes. There are some units out there that, again, I would be horrified if somebody came to our community and went to some of the facilities that we have, not understanding that, we're not checking on them. And they're really, some of them are in very bad shape. So the request was draft a proposed ordinance. This is it. This is a draft proposal for the board to look at and consider. We are currently in the process of working on all of the forms. And like I said, because we've just lost Rick, I don't know that we'll be able to jump in and hit, every place, the first year, but this will give us a starting basis to hopefully make a little bit better place for people to rent.
Absolutely. Appreciate this. I think all of it was really good. I had one specific question. I don't know why, but the section, where's the number? The letters B, section 12, letter B, it refers to building official or any whether, regardless of whether such dwelling units are rental units, where is it? When there is probable cause to suspect that there is a violation of this ordinance at the premises in question. Probable cause made me think, who's deciding if the conditions rise and whether, is probable cause a little high? Could it just be reason, like suspicion?
Well, probable cause is higher than reasonable suspicion. You have to have some kind of,
Articulable fact?
yes. And a lot of times where this will come into play is even if they haven't been in there often, this is complaint-based. A lot of times people will say, they're running this, and the furnace doesn't work. And, and then all
And
of a
there's
sudden.
mushrooms growing
Yeah,
on the
there's
floor.
mushrooms growing on the
So,
floor. I
so
mean,
somebody complaining that the furnace doesn't work is enough evidence to
Yes.
rise to probable cause for an
Yes.
inspection?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
That's, I just wanted to make sure that we weren't gonna get our hands tied because
No.
the burden was higher than
In
suspicion.
addition to this general provision, then we will have the regular inspections that we
Right.
do periodically and select among the different units what we will inspect.
Yeah,
So-
no, it all looked very good. I appreciate it. Thank you.
I have a question on that as well. I also commend this. I think this is a fantastic idea, and I wish that former trustee Bradford was here to vote on this. But there are a couple things that are just a little vague, and I understand doing this, especially with Rick being gone. I'm not really sure what the demand is going to be, how many complaints we're going to receive and things like that, but let's see, it's section 12. Oh, boy. Sorry, it's page 39 at the very top. And it is number 2, a complaint basis, which you said most of them will be. A complaint basis such that complaints of violations will be inspected within a reasonable time. What is a reasonable time? I feel like we should have some type of, even if it's,
I think
we will attempt to investigate within however many days, weeks, whatever.
We don't have a written policy necessarily in the ordinance enforcement office, but it's been their practice to try to get back to people within 24 hours, and then if they're doing an actual inspection of a property, I think they try to do it within like 48 hours. So I'll work with them to adopt like an internal, like SOPs, standard operating procedures. We get a complaint.
Okay.
Part of that, though, may be, if it's a immediate health concern, it may be faster. If it's,
Right.
the hot water's not as hot as I would like it, or the furnace isn't running that great versus there's no furnace and it's 20 out, they may we may create a different
A
standard
tier
for that.
priority of, yeah,
Right.
that
So
makes
there is
sense.
internal tracking that goes, that happens with, when complaints come in, because oftentimes they cross departments too. So, and sometimes an initial contact could be quite rapid, but then then you have to schedule with the resident, or, so, I mean, I think professionally, I would say that the department heads of the township respond to pretty much anything within 48 hours.
Okay.
Whether or not an inspection will happen in 48 hours, I don't think, that, some of that's outside of the control of the ordinance enforcement officer.
And do we have any idea of the regular inspections that are not complaint-based? How often we, and the staffing to do that?
We will be looking
We're
at that.
working on,
Okay.
that's a work in progress. We have to draft rules of operation. We also then are going to set about doing a census, if you will. We've got to try to at least estimate what's out there. And then part of the burden, when we eventually adopt this, will be to notify all of the property owners in the township that they
Right, and
have to
that's
register.
Another reason why I think that we should be a little more specific.
Yeah, we will try to do that, and hopefully we can promulgate standard rules of operation, not necessarily within the ordinance, but sort of guidelines as to how they should
Yeah.
respond. I think it's going to be focused on whether it's an immediate health crisis. If we're talking
That
no
makes
heat,
sense.
it's winter, no water, those things will take a higher priority than, they haven't fixed their drywall, or there is a wet spot on my ceiling, or, so I think we'll try to create a standard that would evaluate how much of an emergency it is versus is it just a
Right.
complaint about the
Maybe-
quality.
So our internal SOPs would be far more specific, once we get that
Yes,
together.
yeah, we'll be
Okay.
working on that. And again, doing an inventory, I think we will probably set a standard as to what we expect for routine inspections. I don't know that we're going to be able to achieve that with our current staffing. So
Right,
in other words,
right.
it may be, here's where we want to go, but it may take 6 months to a year to
We
actually
have-
start doing that.
There are some inspections that have to take place by, I guess, state law, right?
Well, our current standard is to do certain inspections every 3 years. Whether we change that and how we roll all of these new units in, that's going to be,
There's also the liquor store inspections. and
yes.
Those are monthly.
those are monthly.
And
I
so-
offered to do those, but I found out they don't give you samples, so I said, no, I'm not going to do it.
No, they don't hand out samples. Any other thoughts on this ordinance?
Yeah, a couple questions, sorry. I kind of started looking up something else here on our website. Item number, in your memo, the cover memo, item number 2 talks about hospitality establishments, but I don't see a definition for what a hospitality establishment is.
Well, that's a good question. I didn't write the memo, so I would ask the same question.
Okay.
I will have to take a look at that. Primarily, it's any place that is a dwelling, so I'm not sure why they put hospitality establishments.
It may have some meaning, the term hospitality, but I don't know. Anyway, my other question would be, this would apply to, we're trying to have the ability to put a second dwelling, smaller dwelling on a property. So, I don't even know what that's called. It's a accessory dwelling, thank you.
Accessory
That
dwelling.
thing.
It will depend fully on whether, if it's for
It's
mom and
rented.
dad,
Okay,
then that's part of the house. If it's rented, then that would trigger an
Yeah.
inspection
so
and a registration.
does it have to be a contract? What if it's a contract, you're renting it out to your in-laws, your parents, whatever, friends, family, and there's no money, but you want some sort of legal documentation saying that they're responsible for some upkeep? And that may be going way into too much of the weeds.
Again, I think I don't think it would really qualify as a true rental at that point.
Okay.
If it's mom and dad and they're just sharing housing expenses, upkeep, maintenance, lights, heat, I don't think that would qualify as a true rental unit.
Okay.
We probably would not trigger or require them to register under this ordinance.
Okay. And this whole concept is in keeping with our housing plan that we were adopting, or is this something that was ongoing because of the years' worth, as you indicated in your,
No,
presentation?
no, moving forward
No.
with the housing, I mean, yes, it is
Okay.
in line with strengthening our housing ordinances along with our housing plan, for sure. And also,
Yeah, some of the comments I've heard from ordinance enforcement is because of a limited housing stock, people are able to rent just about anything. And if they're going to rent it, we want to make sure it's habitable, livable. Because people are renting things that are not habitable or livable.
So did this, just an additional question, did this come through legal? Did this come through planning? Does this come through, where does the whole?
this is just a discussion.
Yeah.
No, I mean, where did the whole concept of getting this done?
Oh,
Oh,
geez.
3 years?
Ordinance enforcement came to me and said, what do we do?
Okay.
And I said, well, the only thing we could do to be like consistent and address the overarching problem, which appears to be problems in everything, single family, two family, hotels, motels, is to adopt a housing ordinance that addresses all of those areas that we need to deal with. So the need came from ordinance enforcement. The resolution or solution, if you will, is let's get a housing ordinance that is more comprehensive than what we've had in the past. Let's start doing more periodic inspections without just waiting for complaints. Because some people, I don't know how these one people lived in one of the hotel rooms that we saw.
Yeah.
They had no heat, so they ran the hot water periodically to heat the room. And it was a fungal nightmare. I'm sure
They were, it wasn't even supposed to be a long-term rental. So, I mean, it's those kinds of instances when they come forward that, I mean, I think it's broader than just ordinance enforcement. I think we've talked about the need for this, like, looking at our, at how we look at housing as a township to address the housing crisis in general, like, you know, are we doing as much as we possibly can? But then it's not in the ordinance, and so, I mean, I think this conversation or this ordinance, in my mind, has been a conversation in making in one form or another for a couple of years at least.
yes, that's very true.
Yeah, I totally support it. I was just curious as to how it got going and what the background was and who was bringing it forward.
Well,
'cause
Jim had
we have
tons of
so
free
many different
time,
things,
and
you know?
he was
Yeah,
like,
well, yeah, but he didn't have time to write the
I'm
memo,
gonna,
though.
no, I know how he works a little bit, like, he has the stacks, and like, you just gotta get in the rotation of the
Yeah.
stacks, and then you can have yours. Clerk Farmer has her hand raised.
And I do think it's important that although we're trying to increase housing stock, if it's substandard housing, that's not helping
That's-
anybody.
that's
So
what this is
I think
also
this is
about.
really good, and this is a great idea. I really support it. Thank you.
I think that this board should expect that this ordinance may come back before it in the next year or
Oh,
two
yeah.
as we identify challenges that can be addressed in the ordinance. And I appreciate Jim's words on this. Some of it is going to have to be handled internally as far as like defining what a reasonable amount of time is. And in my experience, when that has been referenced in like state law, for example, budget amendments must come back or come before the board in a reasonable manner of time or something like that. We defined that internally to mean quarterly. And so I think that as we overcome some of the staffing challenges that we're going to experience over the next many months, that time frame will be redefined as we have staff to be able to accomplish the goals of the ordinance, right? So A reasonable amount of time right now might be 2 or 3 weeks when we're fully staffed. A reasonable amount of time for some complaints that come to the township might be 24 or 48 hours, right? And so I think we're probably going to have to be flexible. But Jim, I do have a question. As we work on the internal procedure as to how we're going to accomplish that, and this isn't really just for him, it's more out loud, maybe more for Sherry. I want to make sure that our front office staff is kept in the loop on that conversation because this is very different from how we have done business in the past. We get calls all the time from places asking, do I need to register my rental facility with you? And that answer has been no up until the moment when, if we decide to pass this ordinance. And so we got to make sure we have all the staff on board so that we can carry it out, as well as possible from the beginning, because I think, again, that staffing challenge will be there with, Rick no longer working for us and it's just Rod right now. I think that that's really going to be something we're going to have to be flexible with for a while. My other question though is for Jim, and this has to do with if we have to have this flexibility at the beginning, and I guess my concern is if we're not periodically inspecting all of them right away, is there going to be any maybe legal repercussion for that? Because then I'm really concerned that it's going to come back to this idea that maybe we're targeting certain places. And that's certainly not the intent of this ordinance, even though we know some places need to have these inspections right away. I guess I just want to know if there are any legal implications that you can think of right offhand.
From a public perception standpoint, obviously, we need to let them know that, they're not being targeted. And there may be a feeling from some of the owners that they are, but from a legal standpoint, I don't think there are any serious concerns. The reason I say that is the courts have been very clear that municipal forms of government get to choose when and how to impose their ordinances. So in other words, if we are ramping up over time, there's no requirement that we do everyone within a specified period of time. There's no requirement that we start in one location versus another. It's up to us to determine how best to enforce and move forward with our ordinance, and there's good case law behind that. So I'm confident that that's not going to be an issue.
Thank you.
Well, I have a few comments and then a question, I guess. I think this is definitely a right step forward. I want to challenge the board. I'm not anticipating taking any votes on this. I wanted to hear your feedback, but I do want to challenge the staff and the board, myself included in that I started reading it, closely, and I'll just go to section 1, item 6, where it says, and thus to prevent the spread of, slums and blight?
That's what it says.
Okay, I want to, this is our time to utilize our strength in DE&I training and make sure that our ordinances don't contain charged words, right? Like, I'm not sure, I've thought about slums in Oshtemo before, and then what does this, so I want to make sure that we take the time to read through this, and I'm not a professional, and Jim, you're a professional attorney, but I'm not a DE&I professional. I want to talk about who can we put this in front of that really can read it through the appropriate lens and make sure that we are extracting historic language, and sort of that's a step forward, especially when we're talking about housing, right? Because we know people don't always get treated the same. So let's do our due diligence there. So that's one thing.
Okay.
Let's see. That was the big one for me. I mean, there's other little things in here that I guess I can just send to you independently.
That one
We're-
stood out to me too, Sherry.
There's a lot of pronoun stuff in here too that's unnecessary. And so that led me to like, I really need to start reading this from a lens that says that we value making sure that everybody has equal access to housing here. So that's my one big comment, I guess, Jim. The other thing is the other thing that we've talked about, I think, on the dais and you and I, is how does this work? We've talked about part of the work of the housing study was, creating our own housing commission. And when I saw this, I was like, is this a foot ahead of doing a commission? Like, I just wondered the timing of those two things.
Well, obviously, a housing commission, if one was formed, would really give this community more of a right to actually get into, if you want to call it, the housing business, if you will, creating some kind of public housing, seeking grants, those types of things. This, I think, is really just about preservation and maintenance of the current housing stock that you have. So I would expect this would come in advance of a housing
Okay,
commission.
I just want to make sure that while we're looking at the big thing of housing, that we're not like cart before the horse sort of thing.
No, as far as a housing commission, financially, that's going to require a big lift by the township. That's on one of my agenda items is, I'm looking down the road a year or two, and I would suspect at that time, at some point, this community, given its propensity to want to impact people's lives in the community, that there probably will be a housing commission established. But this would be sort of a precursor to that.
You think this is a precursor? Okay,
to-
I just wanted to make sure about that.
Let's maintain the housing stock we've got. Let's not let it deteriorate. Let's keep it as good as we can, or at least to, a minimum standard. It's not asking that everybody make a Taj Mahal, but, hey, you shouldn't have mushrooms growing in your
Oh.
carpet.
There was one facility here in the township that I drove by that's supposed to be an overnight rental facility that on the ground floor had a busted-out window that was covered with cardboard and a beach towel. That is not okay. And currently, we don't have the capacity to intercede. One other thing I wanted to share with the Attorney Porter and this body is, I didn't spend all day on the phone, but when I ran into people who are involved in the rental community and talked to them about Oshtemo possibly putting this in place, because there will be fees
Yes.
attached to this. There will be fees that will be assigned. The people that I spoke with who also like to see healthy, good communities were like, well, don't love fees, but I understand why you're doing what you're doing. And so, in general speaking, understood the value of having things like this in place to protect the renters and the community at large. So I think we just need to, what's a good next step? We can take it back and sort of incorporate.
I think, yeah, the next big step, I think, is to try to get a handle on what we think this will do in the way of number of units it might add to that. Let's take a look at what our internal policies should be, start working on those. Actually prepare the appropriate forms that go with this, let the board take a look at those. I would think we would want to go through those steps before we actually brought it forward for consideration or adoption.
Yeah, and add to our staffing.
Right.
Yeah, I think that's the number one thing, right? The expansion of this program, what's the effect on the existing rental inspection program? And then also the additional units that aren't being inspected, right, that are going to come online. And then that should give this board a better understanding of the demand for staff, right? And we can then decide what we do from a policy and budgetary standpoint. You all do that.
All right, so Jim, let's work together and figure out
Okay.
next steps and then when we want to bring it back.
Will do.
Okay. All right, good discussion. I'm excited about that. Okay, at this time, we are at agenda item number 13, which is public comment. Is there any members of the public? And I am not telling the truth. I am going to return to the consent agenda items that were pulled off the consent agenda. First, we have item 7B, extension of approval for Hampton Cove PUD conditional rezoning. Neil, you pulled.
Yep, yeah, so I wrote down a couple comments here. So while I understand that this is just an extension of something, two of the members up here were not even on the board last year when this was granted. It would be helpful for me to have seen an actual map of where they were, at least to give me a little, some kind of idea of where this was, but the memo also noted that there was board approval on April the 25th, 2023. So I thought I would go and read some background information to try and get up to speed, but I was unable to see the minutes from that meeting because the link on our website actually opens a copy of the April 11th minutes, not the April 25th minutes, and I chose I didn't want to spend any more of my time today on that. I realize this was delayed due to the housing, or the private road moratorium, but I'm wondering, does this fit in with our adopted housing plan? By doing this extension, is it fitting into that, or is it not related to that at all because we delayed them? Is there something else that's going on? And just as a follow-up, after a quick look, I can't even find our housing plan on our website. I would have expected it to be somewhere like under housing updates, Oshtemo Township or something, but maybe that was too logical for me. But I think it should be more prominent, maybe on that and maybe somewhere else.
Website is,
But, you know, it just, so I kind of,
Well, we had a housing study.
we adopted one, housing, like, what did I just call
I'm
that?
trying to think what it was called.
do we have a housing study?
Housing plan.
Yeah, we had a
Yeah, we
housing
adopted it.
study performed, the complaining commission worked on a plan.
But it
and
was to
then
be
We
implemented.
accepted it, and that's all that happened so far, right?
But that plan itself didn't really contain the nuts and bolts of how to get where we wanted to go. I would
Okay.
really think of it more as a housing study because it showed us how short we were.
Right.
And its proposal in how we would get more was by adding apartments, adding duplexes, adding changes to our zoning ordinance. There were a lot of different things in.
A lot of prescriptions,
A
yeah.
lot of prescriptions. One of them was add additional, you know, rental units. This certainly would be part of that plan because it contains senior housing and quadplexes.
Yeah, no, I don't have a problem with that. I just, I'm kind of like going step by step here, like, well, I'm trying to figure out where this was to be better prepared, and it's like I can't find the thing to get to that thing and read what was in it to know.
Our
So I thought it was
housing
easier
study's
just to
not on-
ask, where, it doesn't match, doesn't meet the criteria.
not on our
And if it does,
website?
it's probably buried in there somewhere.
Oh.
It's just not where I expected it to be, and
Yeah.
honestly, you know, this was a holiday weekend. I didn't look at this until this morning because I was on holiday for a weekend. So I didn't want to spend any more time on it than that.
Right.
But I don't have a problem if the board approved it and it still makes sense to extend the moratorium. I don't have a problem with that. I just figured I would ask the question.
No, extend the approval of conditional rezoning.
Right.
Right.
And for location, this is right behind Myers.
Myers, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's fine. That was my only concern.
Yeah.
You know, can someone assure me that it does? Because I couldn't verify it myself, and I couldn't find more information about it, so I gave up. So as long as you guys are,
From my
everyone's good with
perspective,
it, I
I
don't have any
believe
problem with
it
it.
totally fits in with the additional, fits in with the housing plan and the changes that we
Okay.
want to see in the township.
Yeah, and unless anybody else has an objection, I'll move to approve it,
Support.
the one-year extension. Or whatever the motion was, sorry.
You got it.
Okay.
I have a motion by trustee Sikora and a second by trustee Ford. Any discussion on the motion? Make sure, is Dusty still with us? Ah, there she is. Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion, oh, Clerk Farmer?
Aye.
Motion carries 7-0. I take your notes, and actually, I appreciate the updates on the website of what's not working where. It is a never-ending battle of, found a whole page yesterday that's at least 2 years out of date. And I'll talk to Jody and see maybe if we want to reorganize the public information as far as the housing plans and the housing plan and I'm totally forgetting the name of the study, the housing study, that's the name of it. All right, next we move to item 7C, budget amendments.
Yes, I have a question on the budget amendment for the 7th Street and West Main Sanitary Sewer Project. Where is the $70,000, $70,200 coming from? Is that out of the $135,000 that we approved in February? Or is this an addition to it? I wasn't quite clear, and like I said, I only read this today, so I didn't have a chance to reach out and ask those questions.
Yeah, so it is not included in that contingency. I kind of explained that I thought that this was a very specific item, and I see contingency as, you know, we need to do some additional tree trimming because the excavator hit the trees. That's contingency to me. This is much more a specific item. So it's an addition. It's coming from the carryover fund, and the total cost came from the unit price that they provided based on equipment used, time spent with their labor, and then we have our consulting engineer vet that against the average unit prices that MDOT receives on their pay items. So part of the contingency that's been spent was for the initial approval back in, I don't know if I put the date in here of when that contingency was approved, in February. But I didn't want to keep using that contingency for this item. So this is an additional $70,000. And there's a remaining contingency of about 40% because we still have 50% of the project left to do.
But they're saying it's capped at that, correct?
Yeah,
No matter what,
Correct.
basically.
Yeah, we went through with the contractor, and we have only 3 soil borings. And so we kind of made a graph of where the different soil layers would be and agreed which ones were not apparent in the soil borings that were provided to the contractor, and which definitely say this is clay material and they should expect to be responsible for. So there was, at this point, we've all drawn it out on a cross-section of the road, and that's why it's going to be a maximum. So,
Okay, thank you. Do you want to do the next budget one, or?
yeah, whatever you have questions on,
Okay,
go ahead.
and then I had a question on the employee apparel program,
Oh, sure.
and I don't know, if hopefully you can answer this. Are trustees considered employees for this and subject to the same payroll deduction process?
Yes, you are considered employees. They're employees, right?
I mean,
They're
we did get
employees.
our nice, we're able to
Yeah.
Yeah, they
select the
pay
jacket. I
taxes,
just want,
they're on the payroll. Yes, you're
I'd
employees.
really, really like a hat,
Okay, so,
but I wonder if it's,
oh,
payroll
can
deduction or
they
not.
take it? Yes, they could.
We can do it. We'll be in this,
Yes.
okay.
Yes.
I couldn't remember.
Oh, okay.
I couldn't remember. And then, are there any guidelines, I don't remember this part either, whether it was in the HR handbook things, where you can wear logoed things? I mean, I went to the Indy 500, could I have worn an Oshtemo hat and
course you
everything?
can.
Is there any criteria, don't wear it to
I've never
whatever
heard of that.
places?
Well,
or-
back in the
know.
day, we used to have prohibitions against our fire department wearing department gear in certain establishments. I don't know that any of that's retained in our policies anywhere.
I think that's still retained in the fire department policies,
Is it?
you know, no bars or strip clubs.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But we don't have any policy like that.
but a hat would be okay. No, no.
I'm not even going to follow up on that.
No, I know, I was just curious, yeah. If you
Indy
start-
500.
Yeah, well, I mean, if people are starting to accumulate a lot of this, as opposed to a work uniform, you know, you start wearing it in the community and you should, I don't know, I'm gonna say, since it has, Oshtemo on it, that you should be, well, I'm not even gonna go into any descriptions because I may say the wrong term, but,
I would hope that our
not make it, if it's
employees and
shabby
our
and
public
ripped and,
officials.
rip all the sleeves, I don't know
Yeah.
what, I mean, that it looks presentable, but
Right.
you're not wearing it to work anymore, it's not your uniform.
I would hope people would use a reasonable amount of
I-
good discretion
I
in
hope so.
their display of our township.
Yeah,
Okay,
I mean, I guess
I'm just asking, I don't know.
if we get any word back that someone's, let's start with trust. Let's start with trust. It's so
Trust but
funny.
verify.
Although I will say that in 1987, in high school track, you were not allowed to wear your track sweats anywhere
Anywhere
else.
else, no.
You could only wear them to practice and meets. And that was, let me say, the 1987, Neil.
Yeah?
Those are the olden days, that's what I'm saying.
Oh, okay. All right, that's all I had. Were those the only two items, I think, on the
Yeah.
budget amendment?
Yep.
Well, then, I'm good with both of those responses, and I would move to approve the budget amendments.
Second.
I have a motion by trustee Sikora, a second by trustee Ford. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor say aye.
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 Thank you, Clerk Farmer. Thank you, Sarah. Our HR director is online. Thanks for getting that all organized and put together. It makes me so happy when I see people wearing their logoed stuff around the office. It really does. Okay, next we have public comment. Do we have anyone on Zoom wishing to make public comment? Seeing no hands raised, no one in the public, I'll close public comment. That moves us to board member comments and committee updates. Clerk Farmer, why don't we start with you?
Updates that can't wait for our next meeting.
Okay,
Thank you.
you're welcome. Trustee Cole?
Just like to say, I stopped out at the Drake Farmstead last Sunday? There were quite a few people there. We showed up a little bit later in the day. I think we had just missed Zach and Michael. Oh, yeah. And I was very happy that as we were pulling in, News 3 was leaving. I was like, yes. But it looked like a really good turnout, and it was really neat to see it. I think, I definitely hadn't been there since, I'm trying to remember when we walked it, shortly after the last election, before they started the renovations.
Oh, wow.
So it was really, really neat to see it, and all of the, I don't know, were those all volunteers that were there?
Uh-huh.
Yep.
With the exception of Vanessa. Oh, Greg Fountain was probably there too.
Yeah, I mean, they were throughout the whole house and just a wealth of information.
Oh,
and-
yeah, that's the Ashmo Historical Society.
Yeah, it was neat, so, that's all I had.
Oh, good, thanks for going out to support that event, Kristen. Trustee Ford.
It's crazy. Yes, I promised to come with a better update, and I've got one. So, Planning Commission last meeting did a few different things. They were all approved. We're gonna have a new private K-6 school, looking to be setting up in the Emmanuel Fellowship Church on H and 10th Street. That was a special exception use. Let's see, we also have a special exception use and site plan approval for a new animal hospital that'll be going in across from Langland Funeral Home on 9th Street there. It'll be on the east side of 9th. And then the Westport Village over on H Avenue, their phase 3 of their development was approved, and they went ahead and split that into 2 separate phases, so they'll have a 4th yet to come. But all of those were approved and moving forward, I believe, most, if not all, will come here? I can't remember. Special use and site plan?
I think the Westport will come here. I think the animal hospital and the school will just be approved
They're just good,
administratively.
Right, yeah.
Yep.
Is the animal hospital going to be a emergency 24-hour?
I didn't get that impression, but I didn't
I
ask
don't
that
believe so.
I
question.
love that.
I think it's going to be veterinary / hospital, so I think it's going to be not just emergency.
But I mean, it won't be 24 hours. You can't
No.
go
I
in
didn't
there
think so.
at
I don't think
midnight
so.
and say.
No.
What I heard was that that one was not going to be, that's to be a regular clinic, but down the street here, apparently, I think there's a plan for. Okay,
Yes.
a plan for an emergency.
Emergency 24-hour.
24/7 down here.
They're going to take up 2 or 3
Wherever
suites
West
in
Main,
that
yeah.
new
Wherever West Main is.
facility right on West Main.
Yeah.
Where in West Main?
Where the nail salon went in?
Little
Which
strip
one?
Well, it's the, there's a
so
car
many.
dealership and there's a brand.
By
new
Latitude.
strip mall.
Do you have any other updates?
I'm sorry, no. I'm
Mr.
all-
Ford?
I'm all done with updates.
No, thanks, that's really helpful.
I'll try to bring more.
Fantastic. That- I could-
Trustee
that is
Chapman?
So close.
I gotta rein you all in. Trustee Chapman, any updates?
Yeah, so Neil, myself, and my family, sorry, allergies, had the pleasure of going out to our cemeteries to clean up and to place flags down. It was a good experience. One of the local churches joined us, so we got to spend some time with them, and they did a good job, as did, and we left it looking respectable. And there was some who didn't have, proper markings, so I had to explain to some of the people there how to read the gravestone as far as military members who didn't have the medallion. But it was a very good experience, very hot for this time of year experience. But it was good to get back and provide that recognition to those who have passed. I have nothing, I have nothing else.
Thank you, Michael. And Neil, I know maintenance really, really appreciated the extra hands doing that, so. Trustee Sikora?
Sure, thank you. Friends of the Parks did meet on the 21st, and I'll try and skip through some of these since we've touched on them. We did have a good turnout at the Drake Farmstead for the OHS 20th anniversary event and the Garage Barn Kitchenette dedication. News 3 did show up. And we also had a bus of residents from Story Point Senior Living. They came by also. The Friends of the Parks had supplied cookies and water, and we had such a great turnout, we ran out of the free cookies and water. So that was good. I did want to also make a big shout out to Parks Director Street and Maintenance Director Fountain for making the farmstead look great and making everything run smoothly. What a wonderful job they did. And thank you to everyone who volunteered at the event and everyone who visited. I did see Trustee Cole and Chapman and Trustee Ford there. If I missed the rest of you, sorry about that. I was there bopping around trying to just touch base with a lot of people. But certainly all the board members, thank you for your continued support of the parks and Friends of the Parks too, and our initiatives that we've been doing. A reminder, the first Music in the Park concert is this Sunday, June 2nd, featuring the Blue Water Ramblers. Concerts start at 6 p.m., lasts until 7:30 at Flesher Field, so please come on out and bring your friends. If you didn't get a nice sign to show, just put your sign out so people know about that, and they see it when they're going by, and it's a good reminder. The Thought Leaders Group met on May 15th. Our topic was place types. It was another interesting and thoughtful discussion that we had that time. I did want to also acknowledge Trustee Chapman and his children for helping on May 18th at Genesee Prairie Cemetery, and also acknowledge John Gibson for helping on May 24th at West Oshtemo Cemetery and Hill Cemetery with cleanup and placing flags at those cemeteries to remember and honor our veterans. And of course, we wouldn't have been doing that without the leadership of Maintenance Director Greg Fountain and his team. Just like an FYI, walking around Genesee Prairie Cemetery, some of the fencing is a little rickety and, it's in place, but, I think maybe Clerk Farmer has this on her radar that maybe looking at some of it needs to maybe repaired or replaced, and so that might be a budget item coming in. I'd also like to suggest that we talk about, as a board, one of these times about our work from home policy and getting people back in the office. I think we need to get back to more in-person serving our citizens and improving our employee interactions and development. And that's all I have. Thank you for listening.
Okay, thank you, Neil. Treasurer Bushka.
I have nothing. I am out of season. However, in the next meeting, I will be able to discuss notices that have gone out for tax starting again, July 1st, and posting of the final check from the county and delinquent checks that we've collected payments on.
All in lieu of the next budget. Let's see, some reminders from the supervisor's office that there is going to be a community visioning session Thursday, June 13th at 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. at Oshtemo Township Hall. We need all residents, if you have time, to come join us at that and share your vision for what you hope to see in the future. We had an engagement session for the comprehensive master plan. We attempted, because we have such a high rental population, to do an engagement activity, a pop-in engagement at one of our rental units, and just it didn't hit like we thought it was going to. So we probably will have to, I talked to the planning director, we may rethink that or try to attack it from a different direction. We have 6 full-time openings in the township. So Sarah and I have been in communication about how to get those rolling. She's also, HR is also heavily involved with the Siegel study regarding job descriptions and compensation. So very busy time for HR. Trying to think of, I think those are kind of the high points right now. It's really busy. We have a lot of work to still do, but generally speaking, I think things are going pretty well. So if there are no further comments, I will adjourn this meeting. Thank you.
Take a piece of cake.
Yeah, take cake.
Take a piece of cake.